Welcome back to Small Caps. My name's Kerry Stevenson. Today, I'm delighted to bring you the Managing Director of Pan Asia Metals, Mr. Paul Locke. Now, those of you that don't know, Pan Asia Metals only listed on the ASX on the 12th. I think it was the 12th, was it?
The 8th.
The 8th. The 8th of October, so only a few weeks ago. Let's just give a quick overview on who is Pan Asia Metals, and then I'm going to ask you what you've been up to in the past few weeks.
Okay, Kerry, good to be here and good to see you again. Pan Asia Metals, for those who don't know, is a specialty metals explorer. We're focusing on Southeast Asia. We're focusing on assets which we think can be in the bottom third of the cost curve from an operating cost perspective, and which don't have big capital barriers to entry. So one of the things we see with projects is if your CapEx bill is heading towards $500 million, it can be very hard to get finance. The other thing I mentioned, we're specialty metals. So we've got two key projects, the Khao Soon tungsten project, which is a peer group leader in the tungsten peer group, and then the Rion Kiet lithium project, which is a lepidolite style project. So it's not a large project, but based on peer group feasibility studies, it could be a highly profitable project. So there are two key projects.
Okay, so you listed on the 8th of October. I'm going to have to bring this up, Paul. I think it was a week later, on the 15th of October, Pan Asia Metals was suspended. That sent a bit of a shiver through the markets. Can you explain what was going on there to our listeners and to me as well?
I can. I feel like I'm sitting in the headmaster's office or headmistress's office.
With me, you're never sitting in the headmaster's office, but... Yeah, you're right. I did sound a bit headmastery there.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't my
naughty boy. What have you done?
It was him. What happened, Kerry? It was a really unfortunate start. The other executive director, David Hobby, and myself have been working in Asia for a long time, and we see a lot of opportunities. And one opportunity, which we thought the PAM shareholders would enjoy, was it's an application for a copper gold block in Myanmar. And we spoke with the board after we listed and said, look, we'd be happy to gift this asset to the company. It's an application, but I think it'd send a great message to shareholders that we're very serious about growing the company. It's actually looks like it could be a very good asset, but we've just got to see it through the application phase. And then once the application has been granted, we can work out whether we keep it or realise it in some way. So the ASX were concerned that 3 days after an IPO, we were suggesting a transaction of this nature, and that's why they suspended us. They got terribly concerned, and I think in hindsight, that's fair enough, so close to IPO. Our intentions were very good, though. We were actually intending to gift the asset to the company. It had no strings attached whatsoever, no liabilities. It was a pure gift.
If it was, sorry to interrupt you, Paul, if it was already an asset that you had, under application, why wasn't that part of the original prospectus, or had you not even thought about it at that stage?
Well, when we lodged the prospectus, the gold market wasn't really happening. It was sort of moving along, but not a lot. And during the prospectus time, while the prospectus was underway, the gold market started heating up. And David Hobby and I, because we owned the assets, we naturally discussed what we could do with it. And after it listed, we said to the board, look, we have this. Do you think it would be interesting and would it be appropriate? And it went from there. So we put together an announcement for the shareholders, and then the ASX stopped it, and it raised concerns for them. So really, we had the best intentions in the world, and you couldn't think of a better backfire. It just blew up in our faces. So.
Oh dear. Well, I'll take it off your hands if you like.
Well, I'm sure a few people would. But unfortunately, we can't proceed with it, and that's that matter aside. We did release something on the 21st of October to shareholders clarifying, basically said what I just said. We regret that the market reacted, or the shareholders reacted like they did to the news. It was meant to be a well-intentioned announcement, but it should send a signal to investors that as we progress, we want to bring assets into the company. We have the capabilities and the knowledge in the region. And in our prospectus, we state that we want to build a pipeline of specialty metal assets or transactional assets. So as we move along, there'll be other opportunities, but we'll spend our time now just bedding down these two key assets.
Yeah, and let's talk about those two key assets. But before we do, just to close this off, I'd like to just make mention of the fact that I know that you and David are both very focused on shareholder value. I mean, you started this company, you're very focused on the fact that, you want PAM shareholders, that's your ASX code, to do well out of what you're doing up there in Southeast Asia. So I commend you on that, and I'm sorry that it backfired, but I know it was done in the best of intentions. But you haven't been sitting doing nothing. You've started some drilling, I believe, and we've got some results.
Well, we have. So we said that we'd be drilling before we IPO, or when we IPO. Yep. And we actually started drilling 4 days before. We were a bit nervous because what if we didn't IPO? How do we pay the drilling company? But lucky they're good friends. So we were drilling on Sunday. We listed on the following Thursday. We were well underway. And we're announcing we've just completed 3 holes. They're diamond HQ holes. So hole numbers 23 through to 25, and we're drilling hole 26 now. So the good news is we're testing for the IP anomalies and the soil anomalies around our projects. And we're particularly, right now, we're focusing on our T2 prospect at the Khao Soon tungsten project. So our second hole, we intersected from surface 13 metres, grading on average 0.3 WO3, with a high grade intersection there of about 4 metres at 0.6% WO3. So
so I'm going to stop you for a second, Paul, because for me, and I'm sure for the others out there, what does that mean?
Well, Kerry, that means that it's really good stuff. So in where we are for a project like us, point 2 is sort of a workable project. We want to be drilling in somewhere or getting grades around 0.3 to 0.4. So an average of 0.3 in that hole was very good, with an intersection of about 4 metres at 0.6 is really good. In the second hole, we had an intersection of around 25 metres averaging 0.2, with about 4 metre intersection again at 0.5 WO3. So they're really good grades in the tungsten world, particularly when you're drilling from surface with those grades. And then the hole 26, we're drilling right now, so we're not in a position to report on that hole, but we should be able to report, in a week or so with some other material.
Has those grades surprised you a little bit on the upside?
No, in fact, we're drilling a soil anomaly, which is, if I recall correctly, it's about 180 metres averaging 0.3 in soil. I'll have to check that, but it's high grade for a soil anomaly. So, a lot of projects around the world are operating in the, high 0.1s to below 0.2. So to have soils like that is great. So we are expecting these sorts of grades, and the old Khao Soon tungsten mine, there are no records, but it's estimated that the average grade coming out of there was plus 2%, which is just unheard of in the market. Yeah.
So as you develop this, there could be some exciting news going forward.
Well, most definitely. In fact, in some of our old drilling, and investors probably don't realise, this project has been de-risked substantially because we put a drilled project into the market. So we've got an exploration target of 15 to 29 million tonnes at 0.2 to 0.4%. So it's drill supported. It's it meets JORC requirements, and our job is to expand that and move that into a resource. But in that exploration target, we do have some drilling. One hole, I think it was around 50 metres from surface at plus 0.5, including around 12 or so metres at plus 1%. So there are some pretty super grades at this project.
You've had a lot of time in the resources industry. Is this a project that you're looking at saying, wow, this is a sort of a real potential game changer for the company?
Well, yeah, we actually secured this asset in 2014, and we've been doing work on it since then. The environment wasn't right to list it before this year. In fact, I question whether this was the right environment with COVID and so on, but we're here. And it is, we're focusing on securing assets which are doable. So I used that word last time, the doability index. In our view, if we can't see how a project can be doable and can be competitive, highly competitive, we actually move on. And we've moved on from a lot of projects. So this project, in the world of tungsten, I see 3 projects which I would like to have. The leading non-Chinese project or ex-China project is the Nui Phao project in Vietnam, owned by a Vietnamese conglomerate called Mason, and its subsidiary Mason High-Tech Metals. Now, really interestingly, well, I'll come to, so that's the first one. They're producing. That's a slightly larger project, but we've got a lot of drilling to do. The other project is the Korea Tungsten project in South Korea, owned by a AIM-listed company called Almonty. And then there's our Khao Soon tungsten project. So one of these 3 tungsten projects in our book are projects you want to have. Our project has 10 highly prospective prospects, and we've only drilled 4 of them, including the one we're drilling now. And we've developed an exploration target out of those 4 prospects. All of these prospects, 4 prospects are open along strike and down dip, and we've got 6 prospects to drill. So this is why we see this as a really interesting project. And given the cost environment we're in, it's one of the projects where we can head downstream. And to give you an example, Mason High-Tech, Mason High-Tech started producing in 2014. They recently bought APT, or Specialty Metals chemical company called HC Stark in 2019 and consummated that transaction early 2020. Mitsubishi just purchased 10% of that company for US $90 million. So we look at Mason High-Tech, and that their business is our business model, where we want to be. It's our business plan, because we see no reason why we can't do exactly the same thing. So that's where we want to take the company.
I was going to say where to from here, but what I'm going to say is, what's the time frame on something like that, do you think?
Well, we think we can get through to a resource within 12 months. That should be easy. And we don't have to drill out the whole project. We only have to get a part of the project to a resource, our feasibility. Then we can move through to an ML and start on that project while we sort of infill the rest of the project. So, and interestingly, we're in Thailand. We've been there and we've had this project for 5 years, and we just got both licenses renewed. So that says a lot about how the Thai government views us, because they only renew projects if it's in the interest of the local community, the country, and the project licensees have been doing a good job. So,
well, Paul, I have to ask this question on behalf of our listeners as well. We're here in Australia, but there will be other people watching this from around the world. Some people are nervous about Thailand. Is there anything, from a geopolitical side of it, you're very confident with Thailand? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I was born in Thailand. So yes, I was born in Bangkok. My first language was Thai. So I love Thailand. But do you think there's a little bit of geopolitical risk up there, or it's steady as it goes?
Look, I think the reality with regards to geopolitical risk, there's, regardless of where you are, there's risk. So if we look at what happened in Western Australia with Rio Tinto recently, that's introduced a whole new level of political risk in Australia. And I think new ML applicants will have a much tougher time due to that. And from outside of Australia, that's a new risk. In Thailand right now, the protests in Bangkok would be concerning, but that's very Bangkok-centric. We're in southern Thailand and we've experienced no disruptions. In fact, we've been working right through COVID. Thailand's done very well with COVID. And then there's Kingsgate. Everyone knows the Kingsgate story and that issue, which I think I touched on last time.
You did. If you want to watch that, the Kingsgate overview, go back to the 5th of August and watch my interview with Paul Locke at that time. Yeah.
So to wrap up on political risk, Kerry, we use an index called the Political Risk Index. That's actually what they're called. Very imaginative, but they're used by hedge funds and governments all around the world.
Yeah.
And it's a rank out of 100. And Thailand and Malaysia are rank, I think it's 76 and 78 or thereabouts, respectively. If you look at these countries and you look at the foreign direct investment going in, you look at the fact that most Japanese companies have been there for 20 plus years. Toyota's a big investor in Thailand. If Thailand was that shaky, they wouldn't be investing. And in fact, right now with Thailand and their EV policy, there's over 10 car manufacturers which have committed to producing electric vehicles in Thailand. And there's, I think, 2 or 3 battery manufacturers who will be committing. And one of the Chinese manufacturers, I'm just trying to recall, it's not BYD, it's another one, has just purchased GM's auto manufacturing facilities in Thailand to start manufacturing EVs there to broaden its footprint. So even the Chinese are going to manufacture there. So it's a very dynamic region. And when we look at these facets of Thailand and Malaysia and compare them to, Africa and South America, you start to have a different view on political risk. If we just look at Kingsgate and the protests, yeah, sure. You can say, well, it's highly risky, but that's not the big picture. That's
I never knew that actually Thailand's got a very vibrant auto manufacturing.
They're the 4th largest auto producer in Asia. All of our dual cab pickups on Australian roads are made in Thailand. They're the largest 1-ton manufacturer in the world, 1-ton pickup manufacturer in the world.
Extraordinary. Well, we're running out of time. I just want to ask very quickly, where to from here? What can investors hope to hear from Pan Asia Metals going forward? Good drilling results out today. Lots of news flow coming?
Yep. So we're drilling from day dot. We're just going to continue drilling. The objective here, we expect to be drilling till at least Christmas at the Khao Soon tungsten project. And then we'll shift the rig across to the Rionket lithium project and start drilling there and move on to some met testing and stuff at Khao Soon. If we have super good results, we'll drill on at Khao Soon or get a second rig. So we would expect to be delivering results regularly over the coming months.
And if you get some fantastically sensational results, come back and have a chat with us, Paul Locke, because you're getting on with the job. As you say, it's all about the doability index, and you're doing it.
Thanks.
Paul Locke, Pan Asia Metals, thanks for talking to Small Caps today.
Thanks, Kerry. Cheers.